Is this the last time Maiden can genuinely be seen to be pioneers and kind of at the forefront?
Next question. Hello, and welcome to Maiden Voyagers, a podcast where we delve into the discography of Iron Maiden and hope that no one from their camp sues us for accidental slander. I'm Sam, a writer of sorts, and I guess a reasonably sized fan of Iron Maiden. And I'm joined by...
Blev, hello, a historian of sorts and a much more than reasonably sized fan of Iron Maiden. I'm going extra large.
Interesting.
Fan of Iron Maiden.
I mean, this just makes us sound like we're very big.
Yeah. I mean,
like Godzilla-sized fans of Iron Maiden.
Well, you know, if my fandom of Iron Maiden were to be quantified by a mythical creature...
It could terrorize Tokyo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. So this week we're continuing on our delve into Iron Maiden's fourth album, Peace of Mind. We've covered the run-up to the album, the history, the making of, the fallout... Well, not fallout, but the bits that happened after Number of the Beast. And now we're finally going to talk about the music, the important bit.
Indeed, yeah. And also worth saying at this point, we didn't really say it last episode, a really good album.
Peace of Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Mostly.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to spoil my thoughts.
Well, let's...
We've got a whole hour's worth of content.
Well, indeed.
First.
Well, let's delve into the tracks then. Let's see how
Wait, do you have a B quiz or B dead?
Thank
to
you.
start things off with?
As usual, there is a B quiz or B dead. 2 further questions on the Peace of Mind theme following on from the last episode.
Hit me, I'm ready.
Okay, we're getting deep now.
Okay, I'm not ready.
The reverse sleeve of the album features a quotation from the Book of Revelations. That's in the Bible, by the way. But a word has been changed from the original quotation. What is it? What word has been changed?
Can you tell me what the original quotation is?
Never shall there be any more pain.
Always shall there be more pain.
I mean, that would be more metal, but no. Never shall there be any more brain.
God. That, as someone who enjoys a good dad joke and a bad pun, that is bad. That is irredeemably bad.
Well, if
they put that in print.
Yeah, for all time. But if you think that's bad, wait for the next question. But it's interesting that after last episode we discussed the controversy of the Satanic Panic and the Number of the Beast tour.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden just poking the Christian right here, aren't they? Just by taking the biblical quote and subtly
and making it worse.
Yeah, and it's an obvious little troll, isn't it? I think.
I guess.
But next question. On the album, a backwards message was inserted before the start of Still Life. What is that backwards message?
I don't know, and I have it on my notes to ask you when we got to the song.
Excellent. Well, the backwards message is Nico McBrain doing a drunken impression.
Oh, I knew it was definitely Nico. Yeah. You can still hear Nico's voice even when it's backwards.
Well, apparently it's a drunken impression of the African dictator Idi Amin.
What? That is not what I expected.
But I think the thinking behind it was, again, they're poking that conservative right in America of just doing something so stupid and inconsequential that it has literally no meaning whatsoever. Apparently it was based on some kind of sketch show or skit at the time where Nico had this like impression of Idi Amin that someone used to do. So it was just him drunk, basically mucking around, right?
But this also ties in quite well to my point last episode where I said Nico McBrain brings a bit of humour to Iron Maiden that, at least in recorded content, hasn't existed so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also...
Like, in some ways, I'm surprised Steve Harris let that go to record.
Well, yeah, I am as well, because he, rightfully...
It's silly.
Well, it is a bit silly, isn't it? But it's actually a very good way, I think, of countering all the sort of nonsense regarding the accusations levelled at them.
It shows they're a bit more self-aware than people might give them credit for.
Well, exactly, right? And how can you really take issue with something as daft as that? And that is the point. And it sort of annoys me sometimes when critics of Iron Maiden, I'm thinking of the kind of enemy type journalists who go, oh, it's all very silly. As if no one in Iron Maiden, as if this hasn't occurred to anyone in Iron Maiden.
What, you mean getting the 10-foot zombie mascot on stage just being fought by the band members was deadly serious?
Yeah, exactly right. And that criticism in particular, I remember really thinking this really acutely. Like, the Legacy of the Beast shows that we saw before lockdown at different gigs. But I'm not sure if you noticed, but for one of the encores, there's a bit that features Bruce running across the top of the stage and pushing a plunger on a box marked TNT before all the pyro comes off.
Looney Tunes stuff.
It's like, if you honestly think that no one in Iron Maiden hasn't occurred to them, that this is good, daft, silly fun.
They're not Manowar.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, like Joey DeMaio isn't there going, like, what do you mean this loincloth is ridiculous? This is just practical.
I oil myself because it's normal.
I must be well lubricated at all times. This is...
Oh.
But yeah, so that criticism always annoys me. And, as illustrated with that, really daft backwards message that, were you some kind of po-faced Norwegian black metal band, you would have, I don't know, recited this something from the Satanic Bible, but Maiden are just going, like, be quiet. This is like, you're being daft, basically.
Yeah.
So let's get into the track, shall we?
Yay!
Where Eagles Dare, track 1, side 1. What do we reckon?
It's great.
Yeah.
It's such a fist-pumping beginning. It's got really thundering riffs. Bruce sounds on absolute top form, and it just sets a really great tone for the album, even if it's not that strong in terms of like hooky chorus, but it is a really grand opening statement.
In a way that they sort of nail the opening track here. And even before we get to the riffs...
It's better than Invaders, I'll give it that.
That's what I'm getting at, basically, right? They've learned from Invaders that this is how you do an opening song. And also really nice, I think, to give the new boy, Nicky McBrain, the opening drum fill.
Yeah.
That the song doesn't necessarily require, but it's like it's a wonderful little... like dexterous,
that's true.
Like a really nice way to welcome Nicky McBrain to the band as well.
I also really love the middle 8 section where it's got that really cool sort of almost call and response thing of da 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 da.
Yes,
da, da, da. And it's like there's almost some swing
and then the quite tacky machine gun effect comes in.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean the dog fighting sound effects. Is it the first time we've ever heard sort of sound effects on an Iron Maiden song?
Yes, outside of spoken word intros. Unless you're counting stuff like The Prisoner. But yeah, definitely. But you say the first time. Is it the last time?
I'm sure they must rear their head again. I can't think where, but I'm sure. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to think off the top of my head of those kind of sound effects. Have you seen the film that this is based on, Where Eagles Dare?
No.
Are you aware of this at all?
I thought it was a book. So.
Well, the book and the screenplay were written by a guy called Alistair MacLean, who was like a big writer in the 60s. So actually, the Welsh actor, Richard Burton, Welsh legend, approached Alistair MacLean. Basically, Richard Burton said, this is the late 60s, I want a hit Hollywood war film. Can you write me a hit Hollywood war film? And that's
challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. Alistair MacLean did it, and I think the book actually came out after the film, because he wrote both. So starring Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood. It's a really good film. The plot is very convoluted for like a Second World War film. Like there's a lot of cross and double cross. But I like the fact that the lyrics to the song, Steve Harris going, I need some lyrics. I could just narrate the plot of Where Eagles Dare, a film from like 15 years ago or like 12 years ago. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll just narrate what happens in the film Where Eagles Dare. And those are pretty much the lyrics. Like, there is a film about some people fighting in the war.
Yeah, it's not exactly won by Metallica, is it?
No. Like my favourite lyric from that song is because the opening scene of the film is where Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood. I mean, Richard Burton at this point was already quite old. Quite why they cast someone in their 50s to be like this crack, like commando. Anyway, like they sort of parachute into occupied Germany. And
I thought you were a historian.
Yeah. What was the Second World War again? But there's a lyric in the song which is Steve Harris writing, "The confident men fall from the sky."
Yeah, okay, maybe maybe it's not a lyric that stands up to analysis.
No. Also, totally gives
Good
away.
song though.
Great. Oh yeah, amazing song. I love Where Eagles Dare.
Yeah.
Also, totally gives away the ending of the film, where if you haven't seen it, the last verse is just like, and they complete the mission and they escape. So, oh, thanks, Steve. I was looking forward to that.
Everyone has orange squash. It's happy.
But no, like an amazing song, I think, Where Eagles Dare.
Yeah.
Always love it when it pops up live as well.
Yeah, it's really fun live.
And actually, on the World Peace Tour, the opening, the intro music was the sort of theme from the film Where Eagles Dare.
Right.
Which is, nice, brooding, kind of classic 60s war film score.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a lot of love for Eagles.
Yeah, really, really strong flag in the ground to start the album.
Definitely. And like you said, nailing an album opening in a way that Invaders is a bit of a miss.
Yeah.
Number of the Beast. Then into, so yeah, we probably mentioned this, but Where Eagles Dare, Steve Harris composition, into the first, or Bruce Dickinson's first solo composition on a Maiden album.
First official credit.
Yeah,
on a Maiden album,
good point.
Beyond just
you're right.
singing, like first official writing.
Yeah,
credit
first official writing credit. Yeah, for Revelations.
for a completely solo composition.
What do you make of Revelations?
I really like it, and I think it's really weird at the same time. I think it feels quite different to typical Maiden songs at this point, with its quite staccato-y verse riff, but I think it's a great expansion of Maiden's sound. It shows that actually they're more than just sort of straight ahead heavy metal. There's a lot of light and shade in this track. It's more contemplative, it's not ballady, and then it just explodes into full-on Maiden riffery about 2 minutes in. So yeah, it's a really interesting track. It shows the benefit of having additional songwriters, but at the same time, I'm always really surprised thinking, oh, Bruce Dickinson wrote this, because it is more riffy than I remember it being. And more guitar-led than I remember it being.
Yeah, it is very guitar-led. And also, I think am I right in saying this is the first Iron Maiden song that up until this point, that Steve Harris doesn't have a writing credit on?
I think so,
yeah. Because even the Adrian Smith compositions on Number of the Beast,
it's still Steve, yeah.
Steve has a credit on them as well. So you're right, it seems that Maiden are, and again, it's just as well, because when they're releasing albums every year, it's an awful lot of pressure on one person.
Yeah, definitely.
To have to come up with 8 to 10 tracks.
That's how things become stagnant, right?
Yeah, and so it's Maiden really, I think, utilising the talent they've got. And again, no shade on Paul Di'Anno here, but Paul Di'Anno could...
Always some shade on Paul Di'Anno.
A little bit of shade on Paul Di'Anno, but he could not bring to the table stuff as good as Revelations. Just, like a solo songwriting credit.
You just have to look at Paul's solo career tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, Battlezone. Okay.
But yeah, like a really good song, and points the way, I think, like you said, does open up without deviating, because it's a difficult thing, right, when you're a band with, all of a sudden now Maiden is becoming a band where you've got multiple songwriters.
Yeah.
And the risk is that then the identity begins to fragment a bit.
Yeah.
And people pull in different directions, but it's quite a credit to Bruce that he's able to bring material to the table that opens up new avenues without being like, this isn't Iron Maiden.
Well, I think if you'd only heard like the first 2 minutes of it, you might be a bit like, this is unexpected.
Yeah.
And then it just goes into full on, like, not generic, but more standardized Iron Maiden sounds. And that balance works really well.
My only gripe with Revelations, and it was a song that actually, when I first heard the record, I really loved, and I don't quite hold it in as high regard now, slightly. It is a bit too long.
Yeah. It keeps coming back to that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Riff, and you could edit half of that out.
Yeah, there is at least one of those dun-dun-duns.
Yeah,
too
they
many.
lose all impact at a certain point.
Yeah, not okay.
Well, no, it's too much.
Yeah,
but it's still good.
Yeah, like so far, like 2 phenomenal songs.
Yeah,
really
strong start.
Really strong start, but now we get to track 3 again.
Hello.
Yeah, too right. Hello. And again, not a Steve Harris in sight.
What is this? Bruce and Adrian.
Bruce and Adrian, yeah. Which we'll talk about that partnership in a second. But Flight of Icarus,
stone cold classic. I think it is absolutely one of my favorite songs off this album. Probably one of my favorite Maiden songs, full stop.
Agreed.
It has like this really constant driving momentum in the bass line, and then that driving momentum of the bass line is complemented by these really nice wide berthed power chords.
Yeah.
It's just it's great.
Lovely
And then
bit of Martin Birch panning everything perfectly.
Yeah, and then it builds into this awesome, heavily harmonized chorus. It's all just golden. And then Bruce sounds fantastic.
Oh, and his vocals in the chorus where he's, with the layered backing vocals.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's quite an interesting thing about Bruce's performance on this track in particular. Sounds, and to be honest, the whole song in many ways sounds like it's trying to sound like Dio to me.
Oh, particularly the ooh, yes. Definitely, yeah.
The Dio affectations vocally, but even actually rhythmically, the song's got a Holy Diver kind of drive to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not about that Dioism is so blatant, you can't escape it. Yeah, it's like, don't talk. Ride the tiger. But I hadn't Icarus. But I hadn't thought about it in terms of the composition. You're right. There is a very
that dun 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 is very Holy Diver.
Very Heaven and Hell Holy Diver.
Yeah, or Heaven and Hell. Yeah.
But yeah, what an I can't tell you how obsessed I was with the song.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember how obsessed you were.
Oh yeah, but because I got, we established Number of the Beast was my first Maiden album, and actually the next Maiden release I got was the Eddie the Great compilation.
Yep, I had that
doing the rounds
very early
then
on as well. Yeah,
and so it was track 1 to Run to the Hills, Number of the Beast, and the next song, which bear in mind I hadn't heard any Iron Maiden songs other than the songs Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
Was Flight of Icarus. And it honestly, in a weird way, I think hearing Flight of Icarus, that was the moment I was properly just like, oh my God, this band.
Yeah, that's fair.
I absolutely adore this song. Yeah, Bruce's vocals, but also I think Maiden, and again, this is testament to Adrian and Bruce's influence here, just really not being afraid to embrace the really melodic side of Maiden.
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely more of a hard rock sounding song in some ways.
Yeah, and it's actually very simple.
Yeah, but with that comes really strong melodic songwriting.
Well, exactly.
Really well.
Right? Yeah, it's not the sort of, that criticism that was made by that journalist of Killers, the Widdly side of Iron Maiden. It's actually very simple and straightforward, bar two great solos from Adrian and Dave. But yeah, just. Like you said, this would probably be one of your favourite Maiden songs. This would definitely be one of my favourite Iron Maiden songs of all time.
Yeah, it's
and
definitely
also,
top 10.
It's that new writing partnership that goes on to be a bit of a hit machine for Maiden, really.
Yeah,
Smith
definitely.
and Dickinson.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't want to spoil too much. I mean, anyone listening to this knows.
Yeah.
But like 2 Minutes to Midnight,
2 Minutes to Midnight.
Some other songs that we can't get off the cuff.
No, but there's quite a lot of on Seventh Son as well. You've got things like, although Steve tends to share some of those credits as well, but Wicker Man again, I believe is Smith.
Not on Seventh Son.
Not on Seventh Son. No, definitely not.
But the point is, like, there's another creative force within Maiden, and it's not just Bruce by himself. It's the combo of Bruce and Adrian sets a whole new voice for the band.
Definitely, and we will talk about the singles at the end. But I do think it's interesting that this is the first Iron Maiden single not to be written by Steve Harris.
Yeah, that's significant.
And also, the band had a really weird thing about playing this song live.
Oh, yeah?
Legacy of the Beast was the first time Flight of Icarus has been played live since the 1980s.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mad.
That is weird.
Steve Harris has gone on record as saying he's not a massive fan of the song.
Is it because you didn't write it, Steve?
Well, Steve Harris always says, he prefers the Live After Death version, which is a little bit faster and more sped up. And I like the Live After Death version, but I think he's wrong. I don't think this song needs to be faster.
No, what's quite nice about it is the slow groove to it.
Yeah, and particularly in an album of quite up-tempo, high-paced songs, it works brilliantly. But yeah, Steve has always had a bit of a bee in his bonnet about Flight of Icarus.
Weird.
Yeah, he's never been a fan of it, and I think that, that's the only reason that as one of the band's bigger singles, they completely ignored it from the live set for, we're talking decades.
Bizarre.
And I never thought I'd get to see it live. They didn't even play it on the early days tour.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is yeah, it's very odd. You know, when they're playing like Another Life,
Yeah,
but not
it's like,
playing
oh.
Flight of Icarus, you're going,
Yeah, just play the good songs.
yeah, but thank God it's back, and
Yeah.
I hope it stays. Quite frankly, like
Yeah, it's
I'd be
absolutely a
happy
great
seeing
song.
Flight of Icarus in every Maiden gig till the end of the band's days. Brilliant. On to track 4, Die With Your Boots On.
Yeah, good song. I really like the chorus melodies, and in general, the vocal melodies are really strong at this point. I don't actually have that much to say about the song other than it's just very hooky.
Yeah, it is very hooky, and actually, we will get on to Maiden albums, I think, where it's often about this point in the album that they begin to dip a little bit. Maiden are very good with a strong 1, 2, 3 opening, and then sometimes you get to track 4, track 5, and there's a bit of a dip. But I think Die With Your Boots On's great. I think the riff is excellent.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say this track is an example of a dip.
No, definitely not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like
right.
This is not that, right?
Yeah.
This is like continuing that very high quality for me.
As a completely random thing, have you ever heard the Sonata Arctica cover of this?
No, I have not.
It is very good. Tony Kako's like silky power metal tones work really well for this song.
I can imagine that. Yeah. But also, I always think the riff for Die With Your Boots On, which is a great riff,
Yeah,
is almost a little bit predating, like, the melodeath Gothenburg scene. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there's something about that harmonised.
It's got like a slight In Flames vibe.
Yeah, that I can see. And the other thing I really enjoy about Die With Your Boots On is the slightly amateurish gang vocals. But I like the amateurishness of but like the if you're gonna die, the if you're gonna die. Which is like quite.
It sounds like the backing vocals you get in Damn It Janet from
Yes,
Rocky Horror
Picture Show.
Janet.
Well, it's just like riff raff there. Like, if you're gonna die.
Yeah, it's definitely got a good musical theatre vibe to it. What is the song about? Like, obviously, like so many Iron Maiden songs, it's about war and battle in some kind. But I was listening to it earlier, and I know one of the lyrics mentions a Frenchman. And
that's a good point. You know what? I've never really delved into it. I like you. I always presumed it was just here is some generic war-y type stuff.
Yeah,
like I didn't necessarily know there was a clear story attached to it in the way there was to Where Eagles Dare or even Flight of Icarus. That again is Maiden delving into the world of classical literature that they would continue to mine for some time.
Yeah, because that's the lyric that's in 13, the beast is rising, the Frenchman did surmise, through earthquakes and starvation, the warlord will arise.
Interesting. I wonder...
Maybe it's not about war, maybe it's about something more...
In 13, the beast is rising?
Yeah.
I wonder if this is the Frenchman. I wonder if this is to do with the Marquis de Sade.
I don't know what that is.
So the Marquis de Sade was an... Oh, this is me kind of blagging.
Is it a ship?
No.
Because the opening lyrics are another prophet of disaster who says the ship is lost.
Okay, that could be a metaphorical ship.
Maybe it could be a metaphorical
maybe
ship.
It's about...
A boat.
A boat. No, it's just 13, the beast is rising. Like the Marquis de Sade was an infamous French nobleman who lived at the time in the same era as Joan of Arc, but was eventually arrested for all these kind of sadistic, sadosexual kind of tortures and killings. It was like an infamous kind of serial killer of sorts. I mean, maybe I'm going completely the wrong track of this.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There's something for us to look into.
Let's ask Steve Harris.
Steve, what's your song about?
But yeah, brilliant song. Like excellent, and of an era of Maiden songs where it's just like 3 to 4 to 5 minute bangers.
Yeah.
Job done. Just like at this point, 4 out of 4 for me. Just
really, really amazing start.
That's
the whole first half, right?
Yes, it is the first half.
That's an incredible first half of an album.
I mean, yeah, and really, in '83, I'm struggling to think of many first side ones of metal records that are better.
I mean, I'm struggling to think of what albums came out in '83, but...
Well, I'm talking '83 or prior to that, metal records, really. I mean, that is an amazing opening for.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And then on to side B, The Trooper.
I mean, what do we need to say about the Trooper?
This is it, isn't it? How do you begin to talk about the Trooper? I was thinking about this, knowing we were going to do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a part of not just the world of Iron Maiden. It's just like a part of the tapestry of metal at this. But like, it's
absolutely.
It's part of the furniture. It's very hard to imagine approaching it with like fresh ears in a way that is new, because it's just ubiquitous.
It's just part of heavy metal canon, right? I mean, the note I put for it was, the Trooper is very much one of the greatest songs Maiden have ever made. I don't really have much to proletize about it. Up there with Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills and 2 Minutes to Midnight as a defining song of the band.
That is it, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
That is it. But I was trying to think, though, like, if I were to approach it with fresh ears, as impossible as that is, there are some things about it that still I kind of marvel at. The fact that the opening riff, I think, is one of the best riffs in the history of heavy metal, that descending.
It's such a cool riff. Yeah.
But then, most bands would take that riff and go, wow, this is amazing. This is like the anchor, the linchpin of my song. You don't hear it again until the very end of the song.
Yeah.
Like, it's only played twice.
Yeah.
Like, you get it right at the start, and then another blast right at the very end. Then it morphs into that lead guitar riff that, you know, without sort of having heard the song probably literally hundreds, if not thousands of times at this point, you think, well, where the hell's that come from? Like,
yeah,
for a song that's, you know, basically 4 minutes long, there's so much packed into it.
That opening and ending riff as well is particularly, the longevity of that riff is really interesting, in that you hear lots of bands at live shows will just, for funsies, end a song with
Yeah.
that.
Just perfect.
It's the only other song I can think that gets used in that way, not as a cover, but just as like a fun ending note, is the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da of Love Gun.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that riff just weaving itself into the metal tapestry, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. And even lyrically, again, a Steve Harris composition, like one of his finest, without a shadow of a doubt. And sometimes, well, as we discussed with our Eagles there, sometimes Steve's lyrics
aren't great.
They're not great, but sometimes they just hit the right note.
Yeah, I mean, the way this is so from the protagonist's point of view and stuff, it in the same way that, I mean, we talked a lot about Hallowed Be Thy Name and some of the problems with that, but what makes Hallowed Be Thy Name so compelling is that first-person perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that the same applies to the Trooper.
Yeah. I mean, just that opening line, if I think about it, it's totally nonsensical. But you take my life, but I take yours too. Like, it's like, what? but also...
it makes sense. It's just like, well, if I'm going to die, you're going to die at the same time.
Yes, yeah.
It's
logistically
sort of
quite challenging to make that work, but yeah.
Not if your weapons are like bayonets.
Yeah. But it's just perfect. It just is like, yes, it doesn't matter what the meaning is. It's just that combination of words with that music is just spot on. And yeah, what can you say about it? The solos are brilliant from Adrian and Dave Murray. Great, another amazing, stellar performance from Bruce and the vocals.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I can say about it that I've never seen noticed anywhere else, and I don't know if this is just me, but one thing I've noticed about like 32 seconds into the song, oddly specific, but when it's gone in like the full pelt momentum driving riff, it always sounds to me like there's a slight robotic voice in the background. I don't know if it's just like a production quirk on the bass line, but it sounds like a vocoder style voice just saying something. And it's something I've always noticed ever since I first heard the song. I was listening to it again today. I was like, yeah, it's there. But no one's ever mentioned it, and I think I might be insane.
Maybe. I need to listen to it again, because I'm thinking you are insane.
I'm going to try, like, in post when editing this episode, try isolate that bit and see if I can get it. I think it is just a quirk of the bass sound.
Okay.
But it sounds weird.
Interesting.
As another aside, there's another really good cover of this song by a band called The Proto Men.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
It's a good cover.
You take my life, but I'll take yours too. You fire musket, but I'll run you through. So why are you waiting for the next attack?
Yeah, but yeah, classic.
Yeah,
not just an Iron Maiden classic, just a classic track.
Yeah, it's in the pantheon of heavy metal, right?
So far,
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
And
now it all changes.
this is what I'm going to say, is up until this point, this is one of, if not the greatest heavy metal albums of all time.
Yeah, but you can't really say that when you're talking about 5/8 of an album.
But that's it. But this is where this album, it kind of, the next 4 songs that we're going to discuss, when your first 5 songs are this good, it's very hard to... Let's talk about Still Life, track 6. What do you make of Still Life?
Weird. So, I don't think it's a bad song.
No, definitely not.
It's definitely a dip, but I think its haunting guitar leads and the way it leads into quite a fist-pumping chorus. It's a bit uneven, but it's fun. It's got some great melodies. I like the chorus itself. It's not bad.
No, it's definitely. I'd say it's
a
good.
solid 7 out of 10 song.
Yeah, but I'd say I think Still Life is actually a very good song. I'd say.
I think what I find weird about it is, I mean, actually, I've got 2 points about the same thing. So there's that. Firstly, technically, this is the title track of the album.
Well, yes. Every time we hear the words "peace of mind,"
someone says "peace of mind." So for this to be the title track of the album is a weird realization.
But I wonder if that's why they don't call the song "Peace of Mind."
Yeah.
Like I wonder if Maiden are going, this isn't really title track worthy. You know what I mean? This isn't Killers or Number of the Beast or Iron Maiden. This is we don't want to make this the center point of our record.
Really good point. This is the first Iron Maiden album without an official title track.
Yeah, definitely.
Which we haven't said before. And then also that line where it's Bruce saying, "We'll give you peace of mind," has this really anachronistic cyber vocoder effect over it.
Yeah.
That just like really sticks out. And, you know, this is a 40-year-old album, but that's what dates it to me, is that sound of production.
But like you said, the verses are very cool with that sort of atmospheric, clean guitar thing.
Yeah.
And the build, it's a decent chorus as well. And, you know, track 6 on Iron Maiden albums are not necessarily renowned as being these are the heavy hitters at track 6. But
on any other Nwabum band's album, this would be pretty top tier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a slight dip from the first 5, but
it's still good.
That's fine.
Good stuff.
Still very good. Like, you know, nothing to, you know, kind of, you know, worry about yet. Until we get to Quest for Fire. Track 7.
In a time when dinosaurs walked the earth. Oh, God, this song.
Go on, share your thoughts on Quest for Fire.
It's no good, Blevin. It is... The whole song is a lyrical mess, and like I don't mind the lyrical mess, but
before we go on to criticise the lyrics, does it make a difference? I didn't appreciate this when I first heard it. It is based on another film.
No, it doesn't make a difference.
Well, but then, you know, this
is based off a factually inaccurate film that puts dinosaurs alive with humans.
But you can say
which is fine.
Well, Eagles There is a factually inaccurate film. Like,
but
like
this whole song is pretty cringy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that opening lyric is silly. And I guess we were talking about before, Iron Maiden could be regarded as humorless, but actually they clearly have a sense of humor. But this song doesn't seem to have any humor behind it, despite being one of the most Spinal Tap things that Iron Maiden have ever produced. And it's weird because Bruce's vocal performance is actually one of the best on the album, I think. He does some incredible vocal gymnastics where he just goes super high.
He does.
Out of nowhere. But there's not a tune.
No, and
it's the whole song is just throwing things at a wall, hoping that, if I put this piece here and this piece here, maybe we'll get a song.
And for me, that is my, you know, I have virtually no gripes with Bruce's vocal performance in this record, but Quest for Fire, like you said, I think that lack of a tune, as a result, his voice almost sounds a bit histrionic. It's very impressive, but it's a bit over the top in a way that feels, well, you say feels unnecessary, but then the music probably isn't there to back it up.
I would just say the song's unnecessary.
Well, yeah, but, you know, this could have been an 8-track album, I guess, but actually listening back to Quest for Fire recently, it wasn't as bad as I remember it being.
If anything, my feelings on it hardened. I used to always think, like, it's all right. the more I hear it, the more I dislike it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't think Quest for Fire is not a good song, categorically. And actually, I saw some online publication has ranked every single Iron Maiden song. Like, what a pointless and daft thing to do. But they said Quest for Fire is the worst Iron Maiden song of the 1980s.
I think that's very possible. We'll have to see how.
It's not a stupid claim.
Yeah,
but I think also the problem with Quest for Fire is that it's come off the back of like at least five of the best metal songs of all time, in my opinion. Song. Yeah,
and then you have Quest for Fire, and it's just walking off a cliff face.
Yeah, and that is the problem. Just by comparison, I think on a mediocre metal record, it would just sit there quite happily, and wouldn't attract any comment at all. But the bar's been set so high for it to just crash off in this way.
It just derails the album.
Yeah, and this segues nicely into the final two tracks. But this is the problem for me, and this might be a sequencing problem, but you talk about albums being front-loaded.
Yeah.
Peace of Mind is almost the case study of a front-loaded album to me.
Yeah.
And, we said this about Number of the Beast, the sequencing of the tracks is a bit weird, but actually, in hindsight, they sort of dot those slightly weaker moments throughout, and you have a gangland, but then it's like, whoa, here's Hallowed Be Thy Name, and it's like, I'm back, like I'm here.
Yeah.
Peace of Mind, I always forget when I listen to it as a complete album.
We just put everything on side B, maybe they won't notice.
Yeah, until you do listen to side B and you're a bit like, wow, okay, so...
But, so I think a lot of the damage is just Quest for Fire. Like, I think the next two songs aren't as comparably bad. So let's address those tracks and then I will come with my theory.
Okay, see what we think. So, Quest for Fire, into track 8, the penultimate track, Sun and Steel.
So Sun and Steel, it's not great, but it is solid, right? It's like the Lidl version of the Trooper. That's how I feel about it, right? It's similar rhythmically. They're quite different otherwise, but it's got a similar vibe to me.
Yes.
It's a little fiddlery, but it's decent enough filler.
Solid is the word. Like for me, Sun and Steel is... And again, actually, having sung Bruce and Adrian's praises for Flight of Icarus, this is another Bruce Adrian song, Sun and Steel.
Yeah, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, it's just fine. It's just really fine. But again, this is an album that starts off being excellent. And I haven't really got much to say about Sun and Steel. Like, chorus is fine. Riff is fine.
Then what about To Tame a Land?
To Tame a Land. This is the worst epic Steve Harris song of the 1980s. Now, I know this will be controversial for some people listening, because there are lots of people who defend To Tame a Land. And again, I think I used to think it was all right, but just listening to this album more and more in preparation for this, the more I listen to Tame a Land, I just go, this song's actually a mess.
Yeah,
it's an actual mess of a song in terms of there are some good ideas within it, but they're bolted on. This song is actually almost clumsy for me in its construction.
I think To Tame a Land is interesting, but a good testament to unfulfilled potential.
Yes, definitely.
It opens with those really eerie, liquidy guitars at the start, and it builds into that really cool, menacing stomp of a riff. But then it just sort of devolves into, here are 7,000 guitar leads in slightly different positions on the fretboard. And it starts to drag, and it becomes quite an uninspiring end.
And then we end up back where we started, and you think, oh, hang on, was there not... because we've just had Hallowed Be Thy Name on the last record, this big crescendo, this dramatic climax. And you say kind of To Tame a Land starts off quite promising.
Yeah.
Interesting ideas. And then it meanders and noodles about for a bit. And then you're back where you started.
It never quite finds its flow.
But I'm glad you said that unfulfilled potential, because there is a really great song in there somewhere. I think there's
some really cool ideas within it. Yeah, it's a song that I can't hate, even though I think clumsy is the right word for it. But I think I would rather something interesting and clumsy than Quest for Fire, basically.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And as would I. Yeah,
I guess my whole feeling the side B of the album is obviously it starts with The Trooper. The Trooper's fantastic. And then things go a bit screwy. But I don't think Sun and Steel or To Tame a Land would feel as bad if Quest for Fire was gone. Just because something, for me personally, about Quest for Fire derails the flow of the album entirely. Like, you could end the album with Sun and Steel, serviceable, decent enough, got a hook, and then end it with To Tame a Land, unfulfilled potential, messy but interesting, and I wouldn't feel so bad about it. But having Quest for Fire just like bookmarking that just feels like, oh, this is the bad bit of the album. This is where it gets sucky.
And conversely as well, I think if Steve had, because you're right, To Tame a Land to me feels kind of unfinished.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, God, we need something, this will do. Had Steve had time to work it up into a great song, then I also think Quest for Fire and Sun and Steel would be more unforgivable, because you'd have that thing pulling you back up at the end, and you'd go, great, okay, cool, it's fine, we're ending on a high. But yeah, for me, the record doesn't, like you said, you hit Quest for Fire, and then we just sort of fizzle out.
Yeah. I just, more than anything, I think Quest for Fire is an unforgivable inclusion on the album. It is B-side material if I've ever heard it.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, Maiden are recording an album every 12 months. It's forgivable. Like, it is forgivable for me.
I'm being flippant when I say unforgivable, right? I mean, this is a multi-million selling band with far more talent than I have in any guys, and who am I to judge? I just think it's a crappy song.
Yeah, and what frustrates me about Peace of Mind is I sort of think this is almost kind of so close to being my favourite Iron Maiden album, and yet actually so far, because it's like, oh, guys, you were nailing it. You were absolutely nailing the perfect Maiden album.
On all cylinders for 2/3 of the album, and then everything just gets weird.
Yeah. But hey, that's cool. That's all right. So, the singles from the record. So, the first single was, as mentioned before, Flight of Icarus. So, that is the sort of teaser lead-up single released on 11th of April 1983. And as we've already mentioned, the first Iron Maiden single not penned or with Steve Harris's hand in it.
Yeah, and as a song that, I mean, whilst it still sounds like Iron Maiden, it sounds like a different Iron Maiden. It's quite a bold step, I guess, having that as your lead up. And I would have assumed they went with The Trooper.
Well, basically. To be mentioned, but I think you're right. At the time, it did ruffle a few feathers.
Right.
Despite the fact that, the quality of the song speaks for itself for me. I mean, to me, it's the natural choice of lead single.
Sorry, I just had to avoid, when I went, I had to avoid going, Definitely going to add that to the soundboard of editing these episodes.
But yeah, to me, it's the obvious choice of lead single, and you also can't help but wonder. We said Iron Maiden have got one eye on America.
Yeah.
If you're looking to break America, that is the obvious choice.
Pretend to be Dio.
Well, pretend to be Dio. For the brief period of time where Dio's popularity is still riding.
Throw some horns and get a perm.
Damn straight. And it works, right? Because this is
the perm.
No, the perm. but Flight of Icarus is Maiden's most successful single in the USA ever.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. It gets to number 8 on the Billboard charts. Yeah, so their most successful American single. Do you know the music video for Flight of Icarus?
I'm sure I've seen it at some point, but I don't remember it.
So it's basically the band in the studio, namely Bruce, with Nico McBrain. For some reason, his face is painted blue, kind of popping up, wearing a hood.
Okay.
It's in keeping with very naff Iron Maiden music videos.
Yeah.
And it's weird, right? Because I was thinking about this. For a band who are so hell-bent on breaking America, I think I'm right in saying Pyromania by Def Leppard also comes out in 83.
Yeah.
And Def Leppard have that iconic Photograph music video that blows up on MTV. I always find it odd and also quite funny how Iron Maiden just have such obvious disdain for music videos. It's like, we want to break America, but we're not going to put any effort into making a music video that looks half decent.
But it's also really bizarre as well, because they're such... Obviously, music is their focus, but they are a really visually led band. Like, artwork's really important. stage shows, setup, spectacle is a big part of their appeal. That for them to kind of be dismissive of video just because, I don't know, it's a new technology or whatever, like I imagine there's sort of a traditional stubbornness around it. Just, it's such a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, from a commercial point of view, well, and I guess an artistic point of view.
But not even from a commercial point, like just
you
from
know.
an artistic point of view. Like, it's a real shame that you go back to classic Iron Maiden songs and look at their videos nowadays, and they're just appalling.
Yeah, but
Like-
so sometimes hilariously bad. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes even charmingly bad, I'd say. But
Yeah, but it's just a real shame that they could have been elevated to the same level as the songs.
yes, which
Iron
they're
Maiden-
definitely not.
Which, yeah, they just don't live up to the songs, and it's a real shame to have the visual representation of the songs be so janky.
But they're not alone. You know, Metallica, as a point of principle, didn't even release any music videos until
No,
Justice
but
for
when
All.
they do, they release probably one of the greatest metal videos of all time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But by that point, they are 5 years down the line, aren't they, of And Justice? And
Yeah, and it's controversial that they release a video and so many people
Exactly.
are like, oh my god, they sold out to MTV.
So the point is for bands of a certain type, music videos, just on principle, were almost seen as kind of selling out.
Yeah,
So
I
Iron
know.
Maiden kind of go well. But it's interesting to see, I
I
think.
love a good music video.
Yeah, and
It's a shame they're basically dead now.
well, yeah, but the divergent strategies of Maiden and their peers Def Leppard, I think, are interesting at this point.
Yeah.
In terms of both bands want to break America, but the way they...
One of them succeeds.
Yeah, well, it was true, yeah.
But by going quite a different direction.
Yeah, musically
as well.
as well, but also embracing the kind of other things. But yeah, a massively successful single. But interestingly, I think it's also one of the very few Iron Maiden singles that performs worse in the UK than in America.
Ah.
So I guess it doesn't quite make the UK top 10. It's still a number 11 single in the UK.
Okay.
So for a metal band, a massively successful single.
Yeah.
What's
the B-side?
Aha. It's already been an Iron Maiden B-side.
What?
It's your friend and mine, I've Got the Fire.
Oh.
The Montrose song.
Why?
Well, this I've Got the Fire has already appeared as a B-side, but a live recording of Paul Di'Anno. This is a studio recording
with
Bruce.
Okay.
They bloody love that song, don't they?
Why wouldn't they just use a different Montrose song?
Because they really like I've Got the Fire, and they want the world to know.
They want the world to know that Maiden's got the fire.
Yeah, but every time I listen to it, it's such... And, that first Montrose album is good, and actually it's a sort of, in quite a low-key way, a very important hard rock album.
Yeah.
I think it's such an average song. Like,
we're going to have to pause recording this episode so I can listen to the song.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've now listened to the song, both the Montrose original and the Iron Maiden version. It's fine. The riff is just knockoff Black Dog by Zeppelin. And the rest of it, it's fine. I mean, the best thing about the Montrose version is Sammy Hagar's voice, I think.
Yeah. And, Maiden do a decent enough cover of it.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
They should do. They've played it enough times bloody live for the last 5 years. But yeah, so there we go. I've Got the Fire again. And the next single we get is The Trooper. So after the album comes out, released 20th of June 1983.
Yeah.
Again, similar chart performance in the UK. Gets to number 12. So not, one place below Flight of Icarus. Doesn't have the same kind of impact in America as you might suspect.
Right.
Again, another very shonky video with the just live performance and then the old kind of black and white war film of the Charge of the Light Brigade. But, an obvious choice of single, let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, I was surprised it wasn't the lead single.
Well, I'm sure if Steve Harris had his way, but...
yeah, maybe it's political choice.
Quite possibly, yeah. But also, and, we didn't really discuss the Flight of Icarus artwork, which is very good in its own right, but the Trooper artwork for that single is probably more iconic than the Peace of Mind artwork, right? Yeah,
and I think we said in the previous episode that I think of the Trooper artwork as one of the most iconic Iron Maiden artworks, full stop. Like, it's top 3 with Number of the Beast and I don't know what else. But it's, yeah. When I think of Iron Maiden, I just usually see the Trooper artwork in my head.
Yeah, and, certainly one of the most reproduced bits of Iron Maiden artwork. And again, fair play to Iron Maiden, they may have been very dismissive of music videos, but when it came to attention to detail for things like singles, can you think of any other band where their most iconic artwork is, or one of their most iconic bits of artwork is for a single?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Like when you look at, I've got a few old Judas Priest 7 inches from around this time. And
Actually, I can, but it's not a metal band, and it's later on. But the Wild Hearts Caffeine Bomb artwork is... Because they're not really a band with that much iconic artwork.
Yeah, and I was about to say, I'm not really sure anyone's going, oh yeah, that...
Oh yeah, that really famous
that really
Wild
iconic,
Hearts single.
So it's a good cover, but yeah, like... Yeah,
but yeah, iconic's the wrong one.
Nowhere near comparable.
Yeah,
but,
no, of course not.
But if you look at some of those old Judas Priest 7 inches from around this time, the artwork is often just, here's a photograph of the band with the title. Right? Yeah. Like a lot of bands really put in no effort at all into artwork for singles. But yeah, as you've got it up on the screen there, I mean, yeah, wow. Like, what a bit of artwork. Just for a single.
Bit of artwork. Yeah. And I think, obviously, it's a single that... So the artwork I put up now is actually from the single that I own, which is the 2003 re-release of the single, which comes with a live version from 2003 and a live version of Prowler from 2005. So I guess the single came out later than 2003. But it's such an enduring single that they re-released it, much like Number of the Beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we discussed before. And there's something quite interesting in that as well.
Also, the hidden Grim Reaper, Dr. Death in the background there. Not sure if he's on the remaster. He's definitely on the original.
The Grim Reaper's there.
Yeah,
not even that hidden. He's just there reaping,
just chilling. Yeah,
just reaping.
Do you know what the B-side is? It's very Steve Harris.
Is it more Montrose? Is it Marillion?
Well, Marillion were... Had they formed by this point? Just about.
I don't know.
You're in the right ballpark, Marillion. It is a Jethro Tull cover.
Oh.
The song, hey, don't...
No, I love Jethro Tull. It's just Maiden doing Jethro Tull sounds a bit off to me.
Yeah, although weirdly, so they cover Cross-Eyed Mary, which appears originally on the, Aqualung, which is, definitive Jethro Tull album. What is weird, apparently, is that in America, you tend to forget what a big band Jethro Tull were in America. Like, a lot of American radio stations apparently flipped the single over, and Cross-Eyed Mary got more play on American rock radio than Trooper did.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Yeah, it is quite odd. I mean...
I'll have to listen to that cover, because also I have a thing about, like, metal bands covering Jethro Tull, because they often take out... Again, we talk about groove quite a lot. And metal... Certain types of metal just sort of take that out. In the pursuit of like heavifying things.
To be fair to Iron Maiden, I think their covers are often good, albeit a bit too faithful and a bit kind of perfunctory, but they are good.
Okay.
What I like about the Cross-Eyed Mary cover is the song originally, like the opening part, has got obviously Ian Anderson doing this like little vibrato-y type thing on his flute.
Yeah.
And I presume it's Dave Murray replicates that really nicely as a lead guitar.
That's quite fun.
Yeah, but otherwise it's the same song, just played by him.
If you ever want to hear a very bad Jethro Tull cover, Halloween covered Locomotive Breath, and it's no good.
Wasp also covered Locomotive Breath.
Oh, God.
Actually, well, at least it's got Blackie Lawless's voice in it.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound like it would be good.
Also, well done for getting so long before mentioning Halloween. That's quite impressive.
It's a new record, right?
It's a new record.
We're just talking about Wasp covers. One cover they do fantastically well is Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplane.
Yes.
That is an absolutely smoking cover.
I would say better than Maiden's cover of Cross-Eyed Mary.
I would say better than most of Maiden's covers.
Yeah. I mean, they're fine, aren't they? But
yeah.
I think the thing is Maiden is they tend to go, the covers are very straight. Like they're not particularly radical. It's a bit like, imagine what that song would sound like played by Iron Maiden, and that's exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, and the one time it works really, really well for me, and we'll come on to it in a later episode, is Dr. Doctor with Blaze. I think that works incredibly well, personally.
Okay. So...
Oh, do you not like that?
Well, we'll get there. No, it's not, I don't... Well, my original point about Maiden covers being quite perfunctory still stands.
Yeah,
anyway.
But Blaze's voice is more interesting for it. All right.
maybe. So the
Look, I
critical.
don't think it's better than the communication breakdown cover we'll get to.
Well, yeah, that is the textbook.
That is the whitest thing I've heard.
So on to the critical reception. Again, frustratingly hard to track down any original reviews from the time, but
Right.
the general consensus that Mick Wall paints in his autobiography is that the press was sort of lukewarm to Peace of Mind.
Ah.
It wasn't the panning Killers got, but it was broadly sort of good. Was the general reaction. But Mick Wall also goes on to say, and I think this is an interesting point, he says, most Maiden purists would probably cite Peace of Mind as being the definitive record of this unrepeatably, no, that's not a word, I have checked, prolific period of the band.
Would they?
I think
I would not call this the most defining record.
no, but I think it's a kind of connoisseur's choice of album. You know what I mean? I think those same people who are saying
When you
Killers.
say connoisseurs, do you just mean pretentious people?
Well,
Like we
how
talked
dare
about
you
with-
talk about our listeners like that, Sam?
No offense to any listeners, but it's like we discussed with Killers. There's something about picking Killers as a high up album. Kind of feels like, oh yeah, I'm not going for the mainstream albums like Iron Maiden or Number of the Beast. I'm going for, the connoisseur's choice, Killers. It's like, yeah, but is it a better album?
But also, don't get me
No.
wrong, Peace of Mind has a much greater claim to that than Killers does.
Oh,
the greatest,
totally.
the definitive Maiden album of the 80s period. I don't think it is. And it's
I
not,
just don't think you can call it definitive when the back half of it is so uneven.
well, that's it. But a lot of people stand up for that backup. You still get people defending.
Well, a lot of people are wrong.
Well, yeah, potentially. I don't know.
People like Coldplay, Blevin.
Hit us up in the comments, people, at Maiden Pod. What do you think of To Tame a Land? Is it as boring as I've suggested?
To Tame a Land is not the issue.
Well, it kind of is the issue.
The issue is Quest for Fire.
One of the issues. But interestingly, now this quote from Steve Harris, I was like, really? Steve Harris said, it's the best album we'd done up until then, easily, and I carried on thinking that right up until Seventh Son.
Are you kidding me?
No.
You're wrong, Steve.
Steve Harris has some very interesting opinions on his own music.
I just think, even somewhat objectively, Number of the Beast is just the better album.
And, actually with giving away some of my thoughts on, like, better than Power Slave? Like, what?
I don't know where I stand there.
Oh, to me, it's... Well, anyway.
You need to listen to Power Slave again.
Interestingly, even though the press... And again, I think this is a sort of natural press cycle. They'd massively big the band up of Number of the Beast. Definitive album, 5 out of 5. It's almost inevitable that whatever you do next is going to be, right, we're coming down a peg now.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so, it didn't get a panning, but was, mixed reviews by the sounds of things.
Yeah.
But despite that, in 1983, there was a Kerrang poll for the greatest heavy metal album of all time. And Kerrang readers voted this the greatest heavy metal album of all time in the year of its release. And do you know what they voted the second greatest heavy metal album of all time?
Is it going to be Number of the Beast?
It was Number of the Beast. Yeah. So, in the eyes of Kerrang readers, and fair enough, to be honest.
What year does Kill 'Em All come out?
Well, that's something interesting we should get to. 83.
Okay.
Along with Show No Mercy by Slayer.
Hmm.
So hold that thought, because
Okay.
we'll get to that. So, again, when it comes to critical reception, we talked about those retrospective rankings that various publications have done.
Yeah.
So these are all from in the last 3 years where various news or media outlets have ranked the Maiden albums. Kerrang ranked Peace of Mind the 5th greatest Maiden album of all time in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Louder Sound, which is the same Metal Hammer and Classic Rock, ranked it number 6. Stereo Gum ranked it 4.
It's quite high.
All quite high. I'm glad you mentioned the Kill 'Em All, because this was the one question I wanted to discuss, and there's no natural juncture to do it, so let's do it now. Is this the last year Maiden are truly a cutting-edge heavy metal band?
Ooh, big question. Big.
Is this the last
question.
time Maiden can genuinely be seen to be pioneers and kind of at the forefront?
Next question.
Well,
but genuinely, yes. I think you've touched on in the last couple of episodes the recording process and writing process for the last few albums. Maiden have settled into a formula is probably too dismissive a word, but like
it's a
sort
great
of,
formula.
yeah, but a formula of sorts, and
a winning formula. That, they seem
and whilst
amazing.
they'll still innovate within that context, like they'll have more lofty and ambitious songs with longer, more complex arrangements and so on. They've landed on a sound that, to be honest, from this point onwards, they don't radically deviate from.
Not until the 90s, no.
Yeah, and to be fair, establishing this sound is a huge, huge milestone in metal, full stop. But if you're going to be putting out albums that are in what is now an established sound, you can't be cutting edge.
No, and
if you have something like Kill 'Em All come out in the same year that Peace of Mind comes out, like, you can see where the edge is. Right?
Yeah, you can see where the edge is, and yet I think it's interesting that 83 is the first Metallica First Layer record, and yet with both of them, you can still see the source material.
Yeah.
So Kill 'Em All is still quite derivative of Nwabum, Slayer's quite derivative of Venom, and
I'd say Peace of Mind is better than both those albums, personally.
Yeah, as would I, but I do like Kill 'Em All. But yeah, objectively it is better.
I really like about half of Kill 'Em All.
But then I think that's my Nwabum nerd coming out, because I love all the reference points. But the point is without jumping ahead of ourselves here, because we'll have other opportunities to discuss this, in about 3 years, the landscape of heavy metal is going to look incredibly different.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
Literally in 3 years. By the time we get to 86...
it's just a different genre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, Metallica are huge at that point. But then you can still trace a lot of what's happening in 86 back to albums like this.
Oh, you can absolutely, but that's the problem. You're tracing it back.
Yeah,
right? That's the thing. You're looking for the roots of it are here, but the future's going elsewhere.
Yeah.
But anyway, at this point, this is still very much at the forefront of kind of what heavy metal is, even if we're maybe saying this is the last time Maiden can truly make that claim.
It's the forefront, but I would say the thing about peace of mind. The thing about Peace of Mind is, whilst it is very, very good, it is more of the same after Number of the Beast.
Yes.
Number of the Beast is a step change, and Peace of Mind is just a continuation of that step change. So I don't think, even at this point, Maiden are necessarily the cutting edge. The edge is a bit dulled, and that's not a problem. Like, they're refining a sound and building on a really strong foundation. They're just not innovating.
No.
In the same way that they were on Number of the Beast.
No, absolutely, yeah. And like you said before, they are exploiting the range of songwriters in the band. They've got better, but the overall effect isn't. It's not.
They're going wider rather than deeper.
Exactly. There are no dramatic left turns, and that's fine for them now.
I meant deeper rather than wider.
Yes, yeah. But, like, and you're right, Maiden basically plough this furrow up until Bruce leaves.
Yeah.
You know, we can talk about Somewhere in Time and Synths and Seventh Son, but basically...
And Synths again.
Yeah, and Synths again. But they don't stray too far from this path.
Yeah.
And, well, yeah, let's not say any more about that just now, because those are avenues to be explored. So let's look at the UK album charts the week this came out. Do you know where this album charted? Obviously, Number of the Beast goes in at number 1.
I never know where these albums chart, but I'm going to say 2.
Oh, close, 3.
Oh.
So... just to spite you. So it debuted and indeed peaked at number 3 in the UK album charts.
Okay.
Let's do the customary. What else do you think was in the charts that week? Big week is my clue. Big week.
I just don't have a clue.
Almost
man.
no rock or metal. I mean, number 1. They don't get much bigger than number 1.
David Bowie.
He's there. But he's at number 4. That tells you how big this week is. Bowie's at 4.
ABBA. ABBA aren't around at this point, are they?
No, bigger than ABBA.
Bigger than ABBA.
Yeah.
That'll be a great album, though. I don't know. I really don't know.
Thriller.
Oh, I should know. I'd love to.
So number 1, Thriller by Michael Jackson. Okay. I imagine was probably at number 1
forever.
Yeah. Number 2, True by Spandau Ballet.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Never such a bad band had such a good name. is my opinion. I think Spandau Ballet is an amazing band
I do
name.
not think Spandau Ballet
I think it's a great band name. I think it's like the biggest difference through the quality of their music, the name of their band is Spandau Ballet. And then Maiden, as said before, To Your Peace of Mind. Bowie at 4 with Let's Dance.
Yeah, I thought it was Let's Dance era.
Yeah, peak 80s Bowie. Again, peak 80s, number 5, Heaven 17 with the Luxury Gap. Number 6, this is a big week. Kool and the Gang with Twice as Cool.
Ooh, nice.
Number 7, Chart Encounters of the Hit Kind by various artists.
What?
Chart Encounters.
No, I heard you.
Of
I
the
just
Hit
mean
Kind
what?
by various artists. I mean, we said Peace of
I want
Mind's
to
quite
know
a bad
more
pun.
about what that album is.
Well, Chart Encounters of the Hit.
Yeah, that's going to be a
in
Google
the
later.
Charts. Number 8, Confrontation by Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Okay.
Number 9, The Hurting by Tears for Fears. And then
This is a very varied.
they varied,
top
but
10.
also huge acts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 80s, early 80s, mad decade. And just to cap off how mad the early 80s was, number 10, Dressed for the Occasion by Cliff Richard.
Oh.
I did actually Google that record. It's a live album of Cliff Richard doing orchestral versions of some of his songs and covers.
That sounds like absolute torture.
Yeah, and just that album name, Dressed for the Occasion.
Yeah, it sounds like someone desperately trying to be part of the Rat Pack, basically.
Yeah, and yet apparently succeeding because he's got a
also being
top
Cliff
10 album.
Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we look back on like the British public, the enduring success of Cliff Richard leaves a lot to be answered for. Like, what are you doing, you people? Let's take this home then. So, man of the match. It's not Cliff Richard.
I mean, I guess it's either Bruce or Adrian for me, just because of their songwriting contributions. Yeah, that's about. I maybe you could say Nico, but to be honest, I didn't notice Nico's presence that much on the album.
I mean, if you go looking for it, it's there. But you're right, it feels like there's a degree of continuity, and neither Clive Burr was particularly instrumental when it came to the creative side, and neither is Nico McBrain.
But I noticed Clive in a way that I didn't expect it to.
Yeah.
Whereas, I just didn't really pick up on much drum stuff listening to this album. I think the main things I picked up on were, Dickinson and Smith's songwriting contributions being a bit of a widening of Maiden's sound.
Yeah, I personally, I was going to plump for Adrian Smith.
Okay, so I'll go Bruce again.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, why not? But as well as his songwriting,
just sounds like a Bruce fanboy a lot of the time, which I'm really not.
But yeah, for me, Adrian Smith, not just because of his songwriting contributions, but I think also some of his solos, like his Trooper solo, is absolutely phenomenal. Like, yeah, so Adrian Smith for me. In terms of, I think one of these will be very easy. Best of the Beast and worst of the rest when it comes to the track. So one track to bin off, one track to keep.
I think it's pretty easy. Best is definitely just the Trooper. I love other songs in the album, particularly Flight of Icarus. But yeah, the Trooper is just an iconic song. And then, I mean, you can guess what my worst is going to be. I've whined about it a lot.
And that would be my worst as well.
It's the Trooper!
Yeah. Rubbish.
No. Quest for Fire.
Yeah, Quest for Fire for me.
Excise that.
And
Lance it like a boil.
My best of the Beast, though, would be Flight of Icarus.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I
could
definitely see an argument for that.
On to then the final thing we need to do. And, because we have to do this. This is...
Yes.
the rating. Out of 10. So, should we have a little recap of where we stand so far? So, I put self-titled it as a 9. I think I gave 7.5 to Killers. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so looking back at the scores that we've given for previous albums, so for the first album, I gave it 7.5, whereas you gave it a very generous 9.
A very, worthy and, if anything, slightly conservative 9.
Sure.
I seem to remember at the time I was erring between 9 or 10.
For Killers, I gave it 6.5, you gave it 7.5.
Yeah.
Number of the Beast, I went 8.5 and you went 9.5.
Damn straight.
So use that to frame your rating this time round.
Sam hates Iron Maiden. And
That's not fair.
and I think
I just
they're one
have
the best
more of
heavy
a
metal bands of all
critical
time.
eye than you.
Okay, so go on. What are you giving this out of 10? Before we say this, I think this is probably the closest we will be of any of the... Or certainly, I think this might be the closest we'll be for a while, so I'm interested to see what you'll say.
I'm a bit torn because it's 2/3 of it is so good, and then the last third not so much. But I think
When you think how good that first bit
I
is.
think if it was down to the first 5 songs maybe, I would give it a 9, and then the rest of it I'd give like a 5. So I guess that probably nets out to like 8, maybe 7.5.
Well, I was going to give this an 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I'll stick with 8. I really loved that first half.
Okay, so yeah, for the first time ever, we're on the same page
Yeah.
here. An 8, yeah. No, I don't know. I had a feeling that I reckoned we'd probably, because I sort of get the feeling that, and I'm sorry to any listeners who absolutely adore Peace of Mind, who might feel this is a little bit harsh, but
I mean, 8 is a very respectable
well,
rating.
it is a very good score. But as a massive Iron Maiden fan, I feel like as much as I will stand by the first 5 songs of this album is the making of one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You can't escape that, the way it ends for me. And
You can't escape dinosaurs walking the earth.
the earth, and again, maybe it's just the track listing. Maybe it'd be better
If you opened with Quest for Fire
yeah. Can you imagine?
and you ended with it as well.
Funnily enough, it wouldn't surprise anyone to know that song has never been played live.
I wonder why.
But if they'd have dotted those songs throughout the album a bit, they could have maybe got away with it a bit more. But it's so
I do
obvious.
think you just have to remove Quest for Fire and then redistribute some of the tracks.
Yeah.
I think Quest for Fire is such a dip in quality compared to everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like an 8 out of 10 is still a very good
mark.
rating.
Yeah.
And again, we are sort of rating these Maiden albums against each other.
Yeah,
as far as
it's all sort of relative.
It's all relative to the world of Iron Maiden, right? So an 8 out of 10 Iron Maiden album is still one of the best metal albums of all time.
It's not the same as an 8 out of 10 for any other album, right?
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Even when I gave the first album 7.5, it's 7.5 in the context of I needed room to grow into Iron Maiden's ratings. Because there'll be some high marks, and then there'll be some very low marks.
And I was looking at some of the other metal records that came out this year, most of which have annoyingly escaped my mind now. But but I do remember thinking, oh yeah, this is the best metal album of '83.
No,
without really much competition. You know, even in a year where you talk about a debut Metallica album, a debut Slayer album, you know, Maiden are still comfortably leading the pack at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. So what's next on the discography docket?
Well, on to 1984's, again, Maiden, the lazy bastards that they are, waiting a whole year before giving us another record. Power Slave, which is where we will find ourselves next time.
Fantastic. Well, in the meantime, if you disagree with anything we've said, or agree, or don't care, you can find us on Twitter at MaidenPod, or you can, if you want to send us an email, you can email maidenvoyagerspod@gmail.com. That's about it.
Also, apparently, like the podcast thing to do is we're meant to ask people to like and subscribe and leave a review.
Please like and subscribe and leave a review.
Yeah,
smash that like button.
On Spotify, it is really easy. You can click 5 stars. I believe that is the only option available, actually.
Please
to
click
5 stars,
the default 5 stars for us.
Yeah, if you see 3 or 4, it's clearly some kind of administrative error. Don't do that. It's really
if anyone's given us a 1 out of 5, that is an admin error.
Yes, yeah, that is inconceivable how that could have happened. So 5 stars, please. And yeah.
Cool, well, a lovely, desperate note to end on. Bye.
Bye.